Life is so unfair. Meghan marries a prince, moves to a huge mansion in Hollywood, inks deals with Spotify and Netflix, rubs elbows with the Clooneys. But sadly, her child will never be a prince. As for the rest of her complaints, they could be real. But I got my own problems, and so do you. But she blames hers on race, and why not? It's the universal fits-all complaint these days. But Lady Diana didn't get off easy either, and it wasn't racism that harmed her. It was the life, the tabloids, what happens when you become the story. Markle can cynically exploit the racial obsession embraced by Western media, but the tabloids would have hounded her whether she was white, black, or brown. Meghan, an actress, shows she can play a victim, and maybe she is. But of what or whom? There's an attraction between narcissism and victimhood, in that self-love craves attention and victimhood can deliver it by the barrel. And so anyone who crosses her can be the victimizer. A clever operator, she showed that in the oppression Olympics, anyone can play, even from behind a gated mansion in the Hollywood Hills. Dana, I'm so excited. I wore purple. Anyway, so, do you believe that they weren't going to protect the baby? That seems very far-fetched. You're a royal baby. All royal babies get protection.
Well, I think that what it was once they had decided to leave and not to do any of their duties, and then they weren't given like basically the protections and the funds that come from the royal service. So, I mean, sounds to me like that's something that maybe they could have talked about beforehand, and maybe the palace didn't handle that very well. But it isn't like they're not able to. They're going to have to pay for their own security. Basically, that was it. You know, should the royal household or the British taxpayer pay for the security if they're not there? I would argue no. I think the other thing that really really got me in the interview was, well, two things. Did you see that for 8 minutes they talked about who made who cry about flower girl dresses? And I'm pretty sure that in every family, when there's a big wedding, someone cries.
Yes.
Because it's just stressful. And she got to do this, and he didn't get to do that, especially in big families. And it's like a big thing. But like 8 minutes about who made who cry about flower girl dresses. And then we find out Kate Middleton sent flowers, which sounds like a very gracious thing to do. Look, the racism thing for her, it's a serious charge. I do wonder why Oprah Winfrey didn't press them a little bit harder. You can imagine that it might have been said. But again, I would do that. The last thing I would say is she said, I didn't think about any of this before I got married.
Right. That's a lie.
It can't possibly be true.
Yeah. Just a correction there, Dana. The royal baby does have some very large duties. Jesse, I saved you for last because I know that this is a story that is important to your heart. You've been Googling Prince Harry since, I don't know, 1997. So what's your story?
You've seen my search history.
Yes.
I'm glad that's the only thing that you mentioned on live television. No, I only watched this because football wasn't on, but I have to confess I found it deliciously entertaining. She strikes me as someone who wants to be perceived as this naive American who didn't know what she was getting into. She had done no research on the institution or the history or the expectations. It's not all tea and crumpets, Gutfeld.
Yes.
There are royal duties that you have to perform. Big duties, as you mentioned before, that she's expected to perform. So she gets out there and just gets savaged by the British tabloids. Race baiting, anonymous sources, fake news. We're familiar with how that operates, right? So she couldn't hack it. She couldn't handle it, and she became suicidal. Says she wasn't getting any support from the family, so Harry whisks her away, and they dial back their duties, and that's fine. Now, Prince Waters, would I have handled it this way? Absolutely not. I wouldn't have done Oprah. I would have shut my mouth, collected my money from my Hollywood deals, and not thrown these hand grenades into my grandmother's lap, whose husband is in the hospital right now. So a little advice from a commoner.
Yes.
You know, maybe not. Don't go on Oprah. Okay. Maybe try that.
Yeah, go on Waters World.
Yeah.
It would have been great.
Commoner.
Waters World.
Yes.
It'll treat you fairly.
It'd be you, Bongino, and Matt Gaetz. It'll be a round table. You know,
Yes. How'd you know who I booked this weekend?
I read everything. But you know what it is? She made a choice between one kind of royalty and another kind of royalty. Hollywood royalty, you live better. British royalty, the food's not as good. You don't have a beach.